We're under pressure at this stage. The game's ebbing and flowing. No one knows which way it's going. 5 minutes of cricket, we're on top. Next 5 minutes, they're on top. And it was just getting, very, very tight out in the middle.
If that game was played today, the referees would have been meeting for a considerable time at the end of the day, and there would have been some very, very substantial penalties handed out. No doubt about that.
With Tim Zura having a go, and one particular batsman, and the batsman said to him, look, I'm going to stick this bat where the sun don't shine, and he bent over and said, well, do it. And in the middle, and cameras just had it full on. And I'm thinking, this ain't going to look good the next day.
Tim Zora was trying to work up all the Indian players, because basically what the Australians needed was wickets. If they kept getting wickets at regular intervals, they would win the game.
At 90, Gavaskar miscued from Bright and was caught by Dean Jones in the covers.
This was just the break the weary Australians needed to get themselves back into the match. Greg Matthews obviously agreed.
He was such a guy who could do anything to disturb the opponent, and he can change your concentration so easily, because he can do so many funny things on the ground. And suddenly you say, man, let me play cricket, and suddenly you see he come out and say something, or he jump around and he talk to the crowd.
In the morning, I would say that there might have been 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people there. By the end of the day, it's nearly chock-a-block, as the news went round the bazaars and the markets of Madras that the game was getting tight and India may win. Ravi Shastri used that strength of the crowd and the support of the Indian people that came in that afternoon, and I've never seen anything like it at a cricket match. You see it more so at a tennis match or a footy game or something like that. But he was remonstrating to them to lift them more and more, and the noise got louder and louder and louder, and that sort of intensified our nervousness.
The gallery is in absolute rapture.
As if coping with Ravi Shastri wasn't already enough, coping with the conditions also became a problem. The unsung hero for Australia on that final day was off-spin bowler Greg Matthews. After claiming 5 wickets in India's first innings, Matthews defied the heat and oppressive humidity to bowl virtually unchanged.
Greg Matthews was very, very strong mentally, and amazing. The whole day he kept bowling in that heat with the cap on.
I can understand him bowling in the cap all day with the bright sun, but to have a sleeveless sweater on and mid-30 degrees and very high humidity, it worried us a bit.
I think the closest I can come up with was a typical Greg explanation that, he once saw a show on the nomadic herders, and these guys who were rounding up sheep or whatever in the deserts used to wear the woolen coats to keep the cold air in and keep the hot air out. So that was his theory.
Several acrimonious incidents finally unsettled Pandit, who played on to Matthews. And the message was clear as the 6th Indian batsman departed.
It did get heated. It was a pretty spiteful match to look back on it. I think both sides knew how important that match was to the rest of the series and to the development of both those sides. India was a pretty experienced side and wanted to stay, I guess, ahead of us in the pecking order. For us, we wanted to get a bit of a reputation as a decent side.
Well, we're all human. We all sort of err sometimes in those sort of scenarios under pressure, and both sides were guilty of it. But look, the actual cricket that was played was just outstanding. And just the little personality clashes that sort of happened throughout the day probably added to the tension and the spite and the overall spectacle.
There was a couple of players were engaged in a headbutt at one stage in drinks. It wasn't a major headbutt, but it was something that definitely happened.
The conditions had taken the toll on the players, not only physically but mentally and emotionally. They were spent, and they were irritable, they were angry, they were sniping at each other. And it needed a lot of control from V. Vikram Raju and Dara Dottawala, the 2 umpires. They became embroiled in it as well, understandably enough. At one stage, Dottawala, in an extraordinary move, said to Alan Border that the pace of it was too slow. He needed to quicken things along.
So I had to go and request him to just speed up things, because it's getting dark, and ultimately it's no good for the batsman to bat in a dim light.
The inference was that we were slowing down the over 8 on purpose. maybe trying to, force the game into, the twilight sort of time, which does happen in India very quickly. The twilight, there's no such thing. It's sunshine, or then it gets very dark quickly.
Porter and Dhothiwala were at their best. And I'm telling you, calm down. Don't talk to me like this. I'm telling you.
I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was, you worry about what you got to do, mate, and we'll sort of be in charge of the cricket side of things. And he got very irate about it, and after a little bit more toing and froing, he said, I will send you off.
Now, I sat back on thinking, is that what I think he's just said?
Oh, you can't send me off. Then I thought to myself, well, maybe he can. So I turned to Bernie and said, well, Bernie, look, he can't send me off, can he? And Bernie, typical, just gave it the bugger if I know and walked off.
I was there, very much there. And in fact, I took Dhothiwala away. I said, come on, relax now, let's get on with the game, because I wanted the overs. So I'm not going to allow these two to carry on, because that's another 5-10 minutes gone. And the light was fading. I said, no, come back, calm down, come back here and start umpiring. We want some overs.